The Old Bridge is the 4th episode of Season 7 of Thomas & Friends. It was written by Paul Larson and narrated by Michael Angelis in the UK and Michael Brandon in the US. Here's the story. In this episode, an old trestle bridge has been damaged by a storm. Skarloey doesn't realise this until it's too late, and he dangles on the broken bridge. Luckily, Rheneas arrives and pulls him to safety. However, after this, Skarloey ends up suffering PTSD, and when the Fat Controller asks him to collect some trucks from the bridge, he is too scared to cross it again. He travels back to the shed, and Rheneas ends up having to do Skarloey's work as well as his own. However, a few days later, Rheneas runs out of water on the bridge. Skarloey is sent to help him, but he is still scared of crossing the bridge. However, Skarloey soon manages to overcome his PTSD and rescue Rheneas, and bring him back home. Rheneas thanks Skarloey and says he was very brave to help him, and the episode ends. Before I get to my review of the episode, I want to point out what's significant about it. Well, not much. It's really only notable for marking the first time the Season 7 variant of the Skarloey Railway theme was used in an episode. The Old Bridge is a notoriously disliked episode of Thomas, and that hatred can be stemmed to Skarloey's actions and personality. I find it a very heartwarming episode personally, but a lot of people take issue with it due to how it contrasts with Skarloey's previously established personality traits, particularly shown in the Season 4 episode, 4 Little Engines. This is where most people claim that Skarloey's character started going downhill, and while I kind of agree with that, I think his character in this episode can be justified. To begin with, we know that Skarloey and Rheneas are well over 100 years old. I think it's fair to say that Skarloey may have become more wary in his old age, perhaps even due to the events of 4 Little Engines. Yes, Skarloey is supposed to be old and wise, but that shouldn't make him immune to being scared. Can you honestly say that if you were crossing a bridge and it started to collapse, and you just managed to escape, that you would be more than happy to cross it shortly after the event? What's important in this episode is that Skarloey is able to overcome his PTSD and rescue Rheneas when he breaks down. This episode completely shows that Skarloey is still as courageous as he used to be, and he's willing to overcome anything to help his friends. This is the same reason why I don't mind Warp and Peace from Season 10, because even though this era of the show inexplicably made Skarloey and Rheneas into young and childlike characters, you can imagine another character in the role, and it also teaches a similar lesson to this episode. The Old Bridge really is nothing that terrible. It's not like in the Hit era, for example, where Skarloey and Rheneas were made into young children like I said before. But that's neither here nor there. I also want to point out that there is a theory that suggests that you can easily imagine this episode taking place when Skarloey and Rheneas first arrived. I really like this theory, and while I don't personally fully agree with it, I do think it's a nice idea. In conclusion, I think The Old Bridge is an insanely underrated episode. It's one of my favourite episodes from Season 7, as I have many happy memories of watching it on the Pulling Together DVD as a young child. Sure, Skarloey is kind of out of character, but it's basically nothing compared to how they handled him in the Hit era. I'm looking at you, Skarloey the Brave.
Whee! Puffed Skarloey as he raced down the hill.
But here, I think it worked well enough, and it gave him a decent enough flaw, for this episode at least. Paul Larson didn't have the best track record when writing for the show, but I think this is one of his better written episodes. With all that being said, I'm going to give The Old Bridge a 9 out of 10. It really doesn't deserve any of the hate it gets. Until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.